the biggest worry that you have about wealth is actually wrong. And in this video, I'm not only going to explain what that worry is, just to ensure that I actually know what you're worrying about as it pertains to wealth. And I only know this because I used to worry about the exact same thing. But more importantly, I'm going to share with you what you can do about it, so you'll be able to move further faster in your future as it pertains to wealth, and specifically as it pertains to your creation of cash flow. So a great question to ask is, what is the biggest worry that most people have about wealth? And the biggest worry people have about wealth is, will they have enough? Okay, so just think about that statement, will they have enough? Or you can personalize it if you want. I try not to personalize or verbalize personalized negativity associated with money, right? This is just something I've learned a number of years ago, because the wealthiest people that I've ever spoke to, the wealthiest people I've ever read about or been around, have a tendency to speak highly positively, especially about things that pertain to wealth. So because of that, that's something I've developed also for myself. So if you think of that statement, will you have enough to, all right? And then you can put anything at the end of that. One of the things that most people have at the end of that, which is their biggest source of worry, is will they have enough to retire? Okay, will they have enough to retire? Will they have enough money to retire? Will they have enough resources to retire? Will they have enough assets to retire? Will they have enough income to retire? And you can fill in the kind of gaps in between that sentence again and again and again, and you will just find that that sentence kind of becomes more and more like your friend, because it's something that you've heard before again and again and again. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, in order to understand where this thought process comes from, I'm gonna have to tell you a very simple, quick story, which I think is gonna really help you understand this whole process of why most people's wealth worry is wrong. And then hopefully you also see why you don't have to worry the way most people worry about wealth. So let's jump into this story. This morning, this literally happened this morning, so I think it's a great place to jump off. This morning, my son comes to me, one of my sons, right? And he says to me, and I'll share with this for context, right? So in my household, I am the dad of 6 children, I'm the father of 6, and 5 of my boys, okay, are younger than my oldest daughter, okay? And my older boys, and obviously it makes sense that my youngest wants to come and crash this session right now, or the video right now, but my older sons, my oldest sons typically make breakfast for my younger sons, okay? So this young man here, who's only 1, gets breakfast made for him by his older siblings, okay? So this is where this gets interesting. So this morning, my oldest son, who's 11, makes breakfast for one of my younger sons who's 3. And my younger son who's 3 has his breakfast, and he specifically decides to have Weetabix, okay? Now, after he has Weetabix, I ask him when I see him, I say, hey, how was breakfast? Did you enjoy breakfast? Did you like breakfast this morning? Okay, he doesn't want to go. It's okay. So basically, here we go. So he basically says, so I basically ask him, hey, did you enjoy breakfast? Did you like breakfast this morning? And he says to me, yes, Daddy, I really, really liked it. So I asked him, I just thought I'd ask him an interesting question, like, what did you have for breakfast? He said, Daddy, I had Weetabix. I said, okay, what did you like about it? He said, it tasted yummy, even though it burnt my mouth. And I said, burnt your mouth? I said, why did it burn your mouth? He said, Daddy, it was too hot. So I said to him, why did you eat it when it was so hot? Why didn't you wait and allow it to cool down? Now, my 3-year-old is very intelligent. If you're someone who follows me on any of my social media platforms, I probably do more videos or like content, if you put it like that, with him, because he just loves to gate crash my stuff way more than my 1-year-old, right? So as a result, there's lots of videos out there of me and my 3-year-old son. Now, interestingly enough, because of how intelligent he is, like, I would have assumed that he would have just waited and forsook the burning of his mouth in order for him to enjoy the food both in his mouth and in his stomach, okay? And it was as I was having this conversation with him that it started to really be clear to me the biggest wealth worry most people have, and why they have this worry, and more importantly, how this worry can be removed, but what this worry actually does for people like me and people like you, okay? So I just thought about it, like, this is super crazy. Like, someone would actually go through some form of immediate, instant pain in order to get some kind of short-term gain, okay? I'm gonna say that again in case you wanna pick up your pen, because this is a lesson that maybe we need to make have an end, okay? Someone will experience a short form of pain in order to have a short form of gain. Now, the reason I say short form of gain is because eating food is not something that for the rest of our life, for 40 years, for 50 years, for 70 years necessarily is going to have an impact. But it definitely has an impact in the immediate. And obviously then there's the compounding effect. So if you eat garbage again and again and again, yes, it has an immediate effect. You may be sick, you may have food poisoning, 3-4 days you may get better. But if you continue to do that on a daily basis, then ultimately, you know, you're now messing up years and generations of your life, right? But why is this important? The reason this is important is because this is so connected to most people's wealth worry of whether they'll have enough. And because they are quote unquote scared or worried, let's use that language, that they will not have enough, hashtag long term, what they do is they do things that currently burn in order for them to feel as though they've earned. Okay, I hope this makes sense, right? When I think about the story of my baby boy saying to me that he literally allowed his mouth to get burned in order for him to earn food, it just really dawned on me, like, this is why most people go through what they go through, because their worry about wealth is actually wrong. And because their worry about wealth is wrong, they end up doing the wrong thing to solve the wrong worry, rather than realizing what the actual challenge or problem or dilemma is and then solving it appropriately. So if you are worried, will you have enough to fill out the end of that statement with whatever you want? Then ultimately what most people do is they do something now to attempt to generate something now so that they can have something now to solve something then. And that's where the problem is. And that's why the problem for most people doesn't end. So the issue is, for most people, their question, which births their worry, is will they have enough to? And the reality is, if you're a reader of the Bible, one of the things you'll very quickly learn is that God has provided for his. He has provided for his own, right? The Bible tells us this in so many different ways. It says you should cast your cares onto him because he cares for you. The Bible tells us that you know, every good and perfect gift comes from above. The Bible tells us that he has provided all your needs according to his riches in Christ Jesus. So when you study or read through the pages of the Bible, what happens is you're perpetually being promised the fact that you don't have to worry about will you have enough to retire, go on holiday, take care of your family. It's interesting, as I'm saying this, I'm reminded of a verse in the book of Psalms where David says, I've been old, I've been young, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread, right? So again, when you start unpacking all of these little elements of scriptural nuggets, you start realizing that being on God's team means financially you're going to be okay. It means in terms of resources you're going to be okay. It means at a baseline your needs are going to be met, okay? Your needs, not necessarily your desires. That's Psalm 38 verse 4, I believe. Let's check that. Or 37 verse 4. But there's a psalm in the 30s of the book which says he will grant you the desires of your heart. I believe it's 37:4. Let's check this real quick. Psalm 37 verse 4. Yes, Psalm 37 verse 4. It says, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. All right. So there is a path to having your desires provided by God as well. But what I'm saying is, on a basic foundational level, the Bible's telling us that our needs are met. Our needs are going to be met. So if you are worried in terms of wealth about will you have enough to, what that means is you're not trusting in the one who's promised you. And that's specifically in this case is God, the God of the Bible, okay? So what happens as a result is you try to fix that problem for yourself. And the way you try to fix that problem for yourself is not thinking about ideas, is not thinking about holistic income, is not thinking about ingenuity, is actually doing something completely different. It's saying to yourself, I'm going to be okay if I figure it out my way. And for most people, my way is not actually a my way. It's not an individualistic, opportunistic way. What my way means for most people is I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. And then I'm going to complain when everyone else is complaining, which doesn't make sense because most of the time, most people are complaining. So the reality is, if you want to solve the problem of the wealth worry, the first thing you need to do is understand what you're worried about. And if you are worried, like most people, about will you have enough to fill in the blank for yourself, then what you've got to do is solve that situation, solve that problem for you. And I submit to you that the way to solve that problem is to understand what the problem is. The problem is thinking from a place of lack rather than thinking from a place of abundance. That's the first foundational conceptual idea we have to grasp, okay? So what is the worry that most people have, which is wrong about wealth? It's, will they have enough too? Okay. Why do they think like that? The reason they think like that is ultimately because we've been educated to think like that. We're educated in schools which breed a limited and a lack mentality and mindset. Okay. And what does that look like? Well, what it looks like is similar to my son having breakfast and allowing himself to go through short-term pain for a short-term gain. Now, what's interesting is the solution to this whole quandary, I believe that's the accurate word. The solution to this whole quandary, to this whole problem, is actually something that sounds so similar to what my son was doing, but it's not what my son was doing. Okay. Now, there's two different ways you can go about doing this. The first one is short-term pain for long-term gain. Okay, now that is a thing. Okay, it's a thing. Now you might be saying, Samuel, how is that a thing? Well, we see that in the life of Jesus. And if you're someone who confesses to be a Christian, the term Christian is basically supposed to mean you're a follower of the anointed one or a follower of Christ, right? And to follow the anointed one or to follow Christ, you have to know what he did. And ultimately what he did is he spent a few years alive. I say a few, it's documented as 33. He spent a few years alive only to die to create a long-term gain for all of those people who would embrace in another way his pain, right? So when you think about that, it makes you start realizing about how wealth truly operates. The way wealth truly operates is we figure out our income, we figure out the idea, we figure out the ingenuity up front. That might be the 33 years, that might be the 3 years, that might be the 33 months, that might be the 3 months, okay? But then we go through a short-term pain. Now in the form of Jesus, that's like a crucifixion. We go through the short-term pain. For my son, that was literally him forcing hot food through his mouth, right? But in order to get a long-term gain, not just a 3-hour, 6-hour, 36-hour digestion system gain, but a long-term gain, i.e. for the rest of humanity, this is going to be an outcome, i.e. for my children's children, this is going to be an outcome. All right, so wealth can be thought of like that. It can be thought of, okay, how do I solve the worry I have in wealth? Well, first they have to have the right worry, you know, and I don't even need to worry about anything, to be honest. That's the right worry. The right worry is to disperse and disband the worry altogether. But if I am worried about wealth and I am saying to myself that my worry is, will a person have enough too, or will I have enough too? If that's the question I'm asking myself, I have to start to break that question apart, disband that question, dismember that question. And the easiest way, simplest way, most coherent way in order to do that is to start understanding how wealth works. It doesn't work being solved by short-term pain to produce a short-term gain. It can work by short-term pain producing long-term gain. Okay, that's the first way. Now, the second way, which most people engage in, okay, is no pain to create a long-term gain. Okay, no pain to create a long-term gain. Now, it might sound crazy, like, Samuel, why would you go through no pain to create a long-term gain? Or more accurately, if I can go through no pain to create a long-term gain, why do so many people have to go through what you explained earlier, a short-term pain to have long-term gain? And I'm going to explain, right? Because some people are what we call pioneers. Okay, now a pioneer is someone who's going to take an opportunity that no one really showed them. They're going to take a step that other people haven't necessarily been bold enough to take before them. Okay, so using the example of Jesus that I used earlier, again, this is not any kind of spiritual implication, all right? This is just a biblical application of this business specific principle, right? So with Jesus, for example, Jesus was doing something that had never been done before. Okay, now we see certain premises in the Bible. We see Lazarus being raised from the dead. We see different renditions of different aspects of what Jesus was about to do, but we never see someone resurrecting after 3 days without necessarily someone praying for them to resurrect. Even in the Old Testament, we see Elisha causing a dead body to come back to life, right? So throughout Genesis to Revelation, Jesus was not the first dead person that came back to life, if you want to use that terminology. But Jesus is the first person where it's done without a secondary vessel, human being, praying for that to happen, or working on that to happen, or doing something for it to happen. So this is a pioneering endeavor, right? And again, additionally, Jesus lived sinlessly, okay? And again, in the Bible, through reading the documented canons, you see that there's other people who are quote unquote documented throughout the scripture of having no sin. So for example, the life of Joseph in the book of Genesis is documented without him having any sin. Okay, so again, there's so many layers and elements of what we see in the life of Jesus which are reconcilable to other elements of other people that we see who came before Jesus. Some people call this foreshadowing of Christ. Some people call this all different things, right? But ultimately, what we see with Yeshua, the life of Jesus, what we see with him is that he does something pioneering. He does something innovative. He does something that hasn't been done before. So in your business, if you are going to be doing something that hasn't been done before, then ultimately you are going to potentially go through some form of pain in order to have some form of gain. I'm just encouraging you to make sure that it's a short form of pain to produce a long form of gain, and not a short form of pain for a short form of gain. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Because there's a lot of words there. Now that we understand that, we now understand the difference between the short-term pain and long-term gain, and no pain and long-term gain. Okay, so Samuel, this no pain and long-term gain, how comes it can still work? I'm going to tell you how it can still work. Because one of the most valuable things you'll ever have in your life is not your own experiences. Okay, your own experiences are valuable, but not necessarily one of the most valuable things you have in your life. Because one of the most valuable things you'll have in your life is called access to other people's experiences. Access to other people's experiences literally is like your ability to time travel. Okay, you may not understand what I'm talking about, but I'm going to explain it. Okay, so this is a book. It's called A Black History Reader, written by Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay, good book, right? Now, I'm going to share this, right, just to give you an example. This book has 291 pages, and in the 291 pages, Dr. Claude Anderson is talking about issues of racism that have plagued the United States of America and people who live or who have been raised in the United States of America, right? Now, the interesting thing is, when I first heard about Dr. Claude Anderson, he must have been in his mid to late 50s. Okay, must have been in his mid to late 50s. At that time, I was probably in my mid to early 20s. Okay, all right. I'm going to say a point in a moment. Hopefully, you're going to catch this. Right now, this is another book. This book is called The Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs. This book is written by Carmine Gallo. Excuse me. Right now, this book is 200 and let's get it. 245 pages. Okay, this book is 245 pages. Now, I'm not going to go into the age of Carmine Gallo because that's not the relevance here, but Carmine Gallo in this book is writing about what he sees as the patterns inside the innovations that Steve Jobs brought to the world. Now, Steve Jobs is late now, he's no longer living on this earth, but the reason why this is important is because he's documenting the whole life of the innovation aspects of the whole life of what many people call a modern day genius as it pertains to technology and innovation and sales and marketing, right? Which is Steve Jobs. Okay, so this is someone's whole life. Okay, and I believe when Steve Jobs passed away, he was in his late 50s or maybe early 60s, right? That's a guess, right? Now let's do two more. Well, this it's hard to do this. This book is Powernomics. This again is written by Dr. Claude Anderson. So, you know, we can just throw that in there on the list. This is a book called The 5 Lessons a Millionaire Taught Me, all right, written by Richard Paul Evans. This book is not as thick as the others. This book is 133 pages, okay? And again, what we're seeing here with Richard Paul Evans' book is Richard Paul Evans is talking about 5 lessons a millionaire taught him. So again, he's not necessarily talking about his own lessons of his own life, so his age again doesn't become the most pivotal factor in this aspect, but he's talking about lessons a millionaire taught him. So that millionaire might have taken a year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years to learn those lessons, but again, important. We'll do 2 more books to just add to this, right? So this book is called Key Person of Influence. This is written by Daniel Priestley. He's a really good author, like a lot of his books. He has based in the UK as well, to the best of my knowledge. This book is 180 pages, right? 180 pages. Now, the interesting thing is, this is not his first book that he wrote. This was, I think, his second well-known book that he wrote. And this book is part of his 5-book writing spree. Okay, this is book 2 out of his 5-book writing spree. And I'll call it that because it's not a trilogy or a set in that sense, but it is a set in that sense. And in this book, he's using multiple case studies and examples of other businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs who have become or who desire to become key people of influence. Now, the reason this is important is because, again, in order to culminate and cultivate and collect all of that information, that could take a lot of time, right? That could take a lot of time, right? Now, last but not least, very powerful book, probably one of my favorite books, Boss Moves, written by one of my coaches, Dr. Myron Golden, right? And Dr. Myron Golden wrote the book Boss Moves, powerful book, and what's even more powerful in my opinion is how he wrote the book. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below, and I can do a whole video on how Dr. Myron Golden wrote the Boss Moves book and why it's relevant to you as it pertains to your cash flow creation and going forward. Right now, this book, it is 171 pages, 171 pages, and I literally wrote on the back 10 out of 10 book, completed reading on Sunday, I believe that says Sunday the 20th of February 2022. Thank you, Lord, thank you, Myron. Okay, so powerful. I literally wrote at the end of this book, when I finished reading it, I thank you to God and I thank you to Dr. Golden, because this is literally gold, right? Boss Moves, written by Dr. Myron Golden. Now, Dr. Myron Golden, I don't remember at the time of reading of him writing the book, but at the time I joined his coaching program, his 12-month inner circle, he was 63 years old. Okay, 63 years old. At the time, he was 63, and I would have been 37 or 38. Okay, now, why is all this relevant? Why is all this important? I'm going to tell you why. This stack of books is a small stack of books, literally from my BookTote, which you probably see in every single video. Not even to mention books that are in my actual library here and across in the studio. But this stack of books, by me reading these books, it just reminds me of the principle that I was taught by one of my first coaches years ago, which was, why take 70 years to learn what you can learn in 7 hours by reading a book of someone who had to take 70 years to learn it. Now, in the case of Dr. Myron Golden, he didn't have to take 70 years to learn it because he was around 63 around the time when I joined his coaching program. But the stuff I was able to learn in his coaching program, the stuff I was able to learn from this book, I'm telling you, it would have taken me a lot longer than however long it took me to read this book. It would have taken me a lot longer than however long it took me to be in a 12-month coaching program to be able to even sniff those things, let alone learn those things, even more importantly, to be able to earn from those things, and so forth for all of these resources, okay? So whether it be Dr. Myron Golden's Boss Moves, whether it be Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence, whether it be the 5 Lessons a Millionaire Taught Me by Richard Paul Evans, whether it be Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, or a Black History Reader by Dr. Anderson, or The Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs written by Carmine Gallo, it does not matter the book, it does not matter the resource, it does not matter the reading. What matters is something that's way more valuable to you than your own personal experiences is the experiences of others. Because the experiences of others are not only valuable to help you, they're also created to help you time travel. Now, what do you mean help you time travel, Samuel? Well, what I mean is generational wealth is what allows you to walk at the age of 30 with wisdom, knowledge, and insights as though you've been around for 90. And you can only do that with someone else's experiences. You cannot do that with your own experiences, because your own experiences can only be subjected to time. Whereas other people's experiences, which are also subjected to time, can come from outside of your remit of time. So if you've been alive for, like, one of my clients who reached out to me the other day, she was just saying hi, right? She recently turned 60 not long ago, okay? So when she turned 60, I want you to think about this. When she turned 60, she had spent 60 years being alive, doing things for 60 years. So she's got 60 years worth of experiences. But the thing that's interesting is in 2019, when I first started coaching her, I was not 60. But because I had impulverated, I don't even think that's a word, right? That word is pulverate plus improvised together, right? But because I had impulverated, let's use that as a word right now, because I've impulverated my life with the knowledge of other people, because at the age of 21 I learned that I shouldn't take 70 years to learn what I can learn in 7 hours from someone who had to take 70 years to learn it. That allowed me to coach that specific client from a place where she was struggling, making £3,000 a month, to a place where she was thriving with a business created to be able to generate over £84,000 a month. Now, how do you do that? I'm going to tell you how you do that. You do that by recognizing that your primary worry about wealth right now is wrong, and that in order for you to get a better picture on how wealth really works, you may have to take the advice, the experiences, the insights, as I usually call it, the high frequency formula, the hindsight, the insight, the foresight of someone else, so that you can have oversight in your life. Now, so that this video doesn't get way too much longer, if you got value from this video, feel free to hit the like button. If you think this video will be of benefit and a blessing to someone else that you know, feel free to share it with that person specifically. And then side by side with that, if you would like to come along for the ride, why not hit subscribe and become a part of our tribe? Because small keys open up big doors. Good day, God bless, and I'll see you on the